We are back here on Warchant TV, more recruiting talk. Ben Spicer and Michael Langston. A busy weekend for you and Matt Lassaire in the recruiting world, Michael. You guys
Yeah.
were able to track down every person that visited FSU this past weekend. I thought that was pretty cool. You guys were doing great work. And then
Yeah.
you circled back around on Sunday for the elite camp. Where we got the chance to see kind of the future of FSU recruiting, if you will, a lot of 2026 kids, and
Yeah.
even beyond that. But we're going to talk about this past recruiting weekend, just kind of what stood out from the guys that you spoke with, and where's FSU standing with a couple of them?
Yeah, I think you first have to start off with four-star defensive back Ladarian Clarity, nicknamed Squirrel. He's a guy that I had heard the last 2 weeks going in that visit, like this is one that they're going to target and covet heavily, and they want to really make a strong impression. This week they nailed it. Connection with the players, loves Certain, loves how he's prioritized, and just the feeling when he's there. You could see it in the body language. Throughout even the interview we did with him, he was blown away. I've already put in an RPM pick for FSU. I know Steve Wilfong also did one, as well as Chad Simmons. So those guys kind of beat me to it. But yeah, that was a guy that I think you start with that. You feel pretty good about where that's going. Another top guy that was there is Zion Grady, four-star defensive end. Going into the official visit, Steve Wilfong kind of said FSU was the favorite. I do think Miami is a threat. I do think Ohio State's a threat, but I think so far the the intel seems to you slightly go towards FSU, or even just going towards FSU. Their development and the comfort he has when he's there. Even said after the visit, every time I go here, it's like they find a way to show me something new or more. And there's just a special feeling that I think he has when Zion's there. So I think they did a really good job as well with that recruitment. So I think he's going to decide probably in sometime in July. It sounds like, but I think going into the rest of the visits, yeah, I think FSU feels pretty good about where they sit in that recruitment. Another one there is Max Buchanan. That's a guy that's a very highly coveted offensive lineman. Certainly the top coveted in-state guy that I've heard even before all these visits and all these different things that happened. He was the guy that I know FSU wants. I do get the impression FSU feels good about where they're sitting in this recruitment. He does have the Miami official visit this weekend. Then he has Penn State after that. But I think FSU feels like the long play they've done throughout this whole process, and just his connection when he's there at FSU with not only just the coaches, the team, but just being around the players. I think was a big deal, for Max this weekend. I think that really resonated with him, and he hadn't really experienced that player, you know, uh, bond and doing things outside of football. I think it really struck him as a brotherhood, and certainly we'll have a full story I think on Max, later today. But I think FSU going into those remaining, I guess, two official visits, I think FSU feels good about kind of where they sit. You have some other guys like Bryce Fitzgerald who moved FSU in his top three. Certainly, they made a big surge move. I'm just curious of if you're getting clarity, and the guy, he's the safety. You look good for Gregory Thomas. So how many safeties are you going to be able to take, and how hard is the push going to be? I have heard over the weekend and even during the week that FSU was a FSU's highly invested in him, but I think it might come down to the decision of, hey, which one do you push for? Either Max Redmond, who also visited and had riveting things to say about FSU, or is it going to be a guy like Bryce Fitzgerald, who you just turned up the heat on for even more? So that will be an interesting dynamic. I don't know which way they'd lean yet, but I think that's something I'm kind of going to keep certainly an eye on. He had several other guys like linebacker Ethan Pritchard, who's already committed to FSU. Pretty much said he was there to recruit Max and other guys. So I think mainly that reason was just to help recruit Max, since Max is a teammate of his. So he seems pretty set and locked in. He didn't even. I even asked him after the interviews like if he was going to take any more visits, and he just said I might take one to UCF, but nothing's set in stone. But it seems like in his mind, his decision, is kind of made up as far as where it goes from there. I'm trying to think, is there anybody else been that I'm missing?
Well, oh, you forgot about four-star running back Usman Chroma.
Yeah, I hadn't got to
He
him
was
yet.
he was very
So
excited. And then we've
I
got
think,
four-star tight end Chase Lofton as well.
yeah, okay. So we have tight end Chase Lofton, and you also have Usman. I will say this: like, I was really shocked
Yeah,
about Usman of how it developed throughout the weekend. I was thinking he'll have a good time, everything will go good. He likes yak a lot, so he'll have fun. But I was not expecting the stuff I'm getting, coming out of that visit of how dramatic FSU feels like they made a nice surge in this recruitment. Because remember, I told you guys right last week, and even with Ben, that they were fading in
yeah,
this recruitment. And I heard over the weekend, Georgia was the biggest threat in this recruitment, but Georgia just picked up another commitment at running back, Todd Robinson, and that gives them two already. So that could adjust things and help FSU even more. But I think they're really really high on the list now. I think they're very much a player. I'm not going to say how mom feels about every other school, but I think his mom really connects with this FSU staff personally, and they really stand out a lot to her. I can't say what she's feeling of other schools, but with this one, I think they're a major player for sure. Chase Lofton, I think they lead for him. Told you and Matt that yesterday that I felt like FSU was a leader. My key was how was mom and the family going to like it? Do they feel comfortable if, hey, we have to leave our baby here? Are they going to be feel comfortable like, hey, these guys are going to take care of it? I think they checked off all that with Chase, and so I think they and he kind of you watched the interview. You really downplayed just being close to home in
yeah,
Nebraska, where he said his brother plays at Kansas State, but he's like he's hardly ever home. So it
yeah.
was kind of like it was almost like he was giving you an excuse, like if he doesn't stay home,
Mhm.
it's not a big deal. So I thought that was big, but I think they really stand out. I think their production with Jaheim Bell, Cam McDonald at that position, Kyle Warlock, even this spring, I think really jumps out to him, and I think he feels like he fits everything they do perfectly. Got Landon Thomas last year. I think they sit in a pretty good spot with both Chase and Lofton and Hollis Davidson. So I think they accomplished what they wanted with him. So I definitely think they're in the pole position there. Certainly, you're looking to be in a good spot with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, you guys got great interviews with those two that we just mentioned, as well as everyone that visited us, as we said this past weekend. If you haven't checked those out already, definitely would encourage you to do so on Warchant TV. Some new developments, though, and one of
Yeah.
FSU's 2025 targets, and that's Zaire Addison. He announced he is going to Oregon. And then I think you have some other nuggets that you want to bring to us as well, Michael, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going around. Certainly we'll start with Zaire. Nobody saw that coming, guys. I don't know what to tell you. That was a very much a surprise because Zaire was expected to go through the whole process of visits. Visited Florida the weekend before, was visiting Oregon. He was also likely going to visit UCLA. He'd been there like I think like I want to like say like 5 or 6 times. We know he's been to FSU like 10 times. He was scheduled to visit FSU officially on the 21st. I don't think that'll happen because, as I said, once guys are committed to other schools, FSU pushes more of the official visits to happen in season. So I do think it's going to be in season, and I do think not. There's a relationship that goes very deep with him and Atkins, and we've seen this before where kids commit to West Coast schools out there, and at the moment it looks all great, but then as the thing goes and then the season starts, I think kids want to see the product of teams that were involved with them really early, like Florida, maybe even Clemson, schools like that. That I think he'll take some official visits, but I don't think it will be until probably in season. I don't think it's like waving the white flag. It's done, but it is a blow. It's a blow because that's a guy that not that he was a lock or it was heavily trending toward FSU. I do think FSU was likely, but I don't think it was a situation where oh, he's for sure coming to FSU. Even the FSU side was more like, hey, we feel like we've done a lot. We're in good position, but we have to get him there for the official visit, go from there. And I think the other question is kind of where he would play, since he does both interior and from the outside. So I think seeing the product on the field, for a lot of these schools, especially FSU, who's the first offer for him, is a big deal. But yeah, it is a blow. There's no other way to sugarcoat. It's a surprise, and sometimes we get some of these surprises that happen. Another development is Dontre Glover visited Georgia. That's a school that we knew that was one of the biggest competitions for FSU. I think for some time, some had Florida State as the favorite, and I think that they were a heavy factor. But it feels like Georgia is trending in that one. He's supposed to visit on that 21st weekend, so we'll have to keep an eye on if he extends the recruitment out farther. I think that's really a key to watch as far as if he takes that visit, then I still think there's a shot for FSU to pull it off. But obviously, I'm going to keep track. But if I was picking today, Georgia would be where I would lean as far as that. Josh Petty is one of the top targets for FSU. 5-star visit to Tennessee. I still feel good about where my pick is with FSU. I think FSU still looks to be in good spot as far as that recruitment. Um, you had another development where Ty Jackson, a 4-star linebacker, changed his visit from FSU to Florida this coming weekend. That's why we haven't covered the 14th weekend, but he won't be on that list. So I think it's more. I did an interview with him when Aslan was in Nashville, and the feeling was kind of like he wasn't elaborating a lot on FSU. It was kind of like they're pushing and they want him and they got a visit set up, but you felt like there was work to do. Even said that after the interview that felt like they had some work to do when they got him on campus. So uh, I would say that's another guy that's probably in season, unless they can convince him to come over from the 21st for that June 21st weekend. But I think overall, a lot of this is pretty standard of fluid of some kids are going to jump on board because they don't want to deal with this stuff anymore. And they're like, if they see something that just caps their eye and they say, you know what, right now, that's kind of, I think a lot of these summer commitments, Ben, for me is a lot of them are like, if I feel good about this situation now, I'm going to go commit because I think there's going to be a lot of decommitments throughout the year. I just think a lot of these kids are going to experience stuff, and even the guys you get on campus that are committed to other schools, it's tough for me to see them decommitting like during the summer. So if they do decommit, I think it will probably be during the season at some point. So that's another thing to keep an eye on when a lot of these kids that are visiting and stuff like that. But overall, it's pretty fluid. I know FSU fans are going to panic because of Zaire, but guy, their offensive line board is really good. Like I said, do not close the book on Zaire. I've heard that there's a lot of communication still with FSU and Zaire, and that one's definitely not over. I definitely think it'll go into the season, but I do think they'll get some certainly positive news, going forward in the month of July. Several things actually. So I think they'll get the good news, but I take it in strides of different things because it's going to be good, and sometimes you're going to hit, and sometimes you're going to miss. But I think they'll get a good share of really good news throughout the summer, late summer, going in July and even August. I think it'll be a really productive summer where they'll be, I think, in the double digits, and I think you'll see this class start to come to shape, later this summer. So I wouldn't panic, and I don't get the sense from the FSU side, like even with these developments I've discussed, that they're worried or they're concerned. I think the offense line. I still think I've mentioned Max. I think they're in good shape with Peyton Joseph. I mentioned Josh Petty. They already have Solomon Thomas. They want to take like 4 or 5 in this class, so um, I think they'll all work itself out. But I think it's still going to be one of the best classes offensive line wise they've had. So I don't think fans need to hit the panic button just because it wasn't what you would call, a productive weekend in regards to targets going elsewhere. But overall, I think I think people have realized this too, even with the KJ Bolden stuff happening last year, that it's not a sprint. It's going to be a marathon
Yeah.
of you're going to get some that you flip. There's going to be some that don't stick with you. But overall, I think they're still on that pace for certainly a top 10 class for me.
All right, well, that's a look back on the last weekend in recruiting. Stay tuned to Warchant TV later on this week. We'll be talking about the weekend ahead, the June 14th weekend. Several 5-stars are going to be on campus for FSU, so make sure you stay tuned to that preview. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and like this video. It really helps us out. And
Yep.
for Michael, I'm Ben. We'll see you next time here on Warchant TV.